Welcome in. It's Wednesday night. It's the High School Fan Zone. This is a special High School Fan Zone. I was thinking on the way over here, I wish I had somebody who could do one of those voiceovers when it's a crossover on TV shows. Because we've got the ultimate crossover here with high school sports tonight. Usually we talk to 4 different schools each night. But this is a big week because UIL biennial, is that how we say it? That's a word I don't use very often. Realignment hit this week, which for folks who aren't that familiar, realignment every 2 years in the state of Texas, they decide who's going to be in what district, who's going to be in what classification, and it changes things sometimes just a little bit, but this year it changed it quite a bit out here in Lubbock. So we're going to talk to the 3 athletic directors for the public school districts here. If you're watching on TV, to my left is Mike Meeks, Lubbock ISD. I always ask you guys, should I call you executive athletic directors? Does that get you, maybe they pay you a little bit more if I say that?
That sounds pretty special.
You can call it.
AD's good as me.
Lubbock Cooper ISD executive athletic director Max Kattwinkel, and Friendship ISD executive athletic director Bryan Gerlich is to the far left. Guys, thanks for coming. When I texted y'all, I said this has got to be all or nothing, and I was thinking, I don't know if I can get all 3 of those guys in one place at one time, but I did, and I'm pretty impressed because you all. First of all, let me start with you, Mike. What's Monday like for you on Realignment Day for an athletic director?
Well, for us, we show up out the Region Service Center, make sure all our coaches are there, and heading into Monday, we kind of have an idea of what our schedules are. Coaches do a good job. They're responsible for networking. Working with other coaches, setting their schedule up, and there's even this year, we didn't know for sure, but you have a Schedule A that you're trying to set up and a Schedule B that you're trying to set up. We've been talking about this for 6 months, and our coaches really have been working on this since year one, really, too, with developing those relationships to secure games. But, we try to help them along the way and just make sure they keep thinking about it and ensuring what we have is going into realignment. But are we looking at a 17 district? Are we looking at an 18 district? For us in Lubbock ISD, with Coronado moving down to D1, that changed the landscape of scheduling for our schools, and especially scheduling each other. And so we're trying to ensure that our schedules stay intact, and then as soon as 9 o'clock hits on Monday morning, we're checking the boxes. Are we good? Are we good? Are we good? If we have any hot spots, then as you've seen through social media and seen video of coaches on the phone and talking to different people at different sites, and just trying
it's
to
like the
ensure
stock
that your
exchange.
schedule- Yeah.
When you say it's like the bell goes off.
For us in Lubbock ISD, it's a little bit different when you with Bryan and Max. It takes us a while because we have multiple schools in one school district. We share one stadium. It's usually not till April 1st before we actually release our schedule, before we can settle on all the home and aways, and especially the Thursday nights and Friday nights. So that's what I'm working on right now is the Thursday night and Friday nights and the non-district home and away schedules.
I'm going to skip over you for a second, Max, because you went through what Bryan has dealt with here. You said you've been working on 6 months. Bryan, it's probably been a little bit longer for you, adding Memorial and kind of wondering how that's going to shake out with a new school.
Yeah, that's been our biggest challenges. Now, for the first time, we were dealing with 2 football teams playing at People's Bank Stadium. And, historically, we could always just set a schedule and didn't have to worry about who's at home, who's away. That's because it was one school. So that was different for us a little bit. And just like Mike said, we're still working through a little bit of the home and away stuff with some of our non-district opponents. But for us on Realignment Day, I got to admit, once I knew we were in an 8-team district, I was ecstatic. And I said, okay, we've got that figured out already. Because historically for Friendship, we were always in that 6A run. And we were always having to find non-district games.
Right.
These guys all had games lined up because they were in bigger districts, and that week 4 and 5 in there was always really hard for us. So we've traveled to New Mexico to play games, and we've played Midland Christian a few times along the way. And so this was I don't want to say it was an easy year for scheduling, but it was a lot less stressful.
That's a good segue, because now we can get Max to talk, because you had 2 schools, and Liberty wound up the opposite in the 4-team district, or 4 or 5.
They're a 5-team.
5-team, so a little bit different with them now because you got those 4 district games. Now I guess they've been in that the last few years. That's a little bit different than scrambling to find somebody to play. You guys are with Liberty, especially with the season they're coming off of. That was probably a little bit more of a challenge.
It is the week 6, and Mike deals with it with Estacado.
Yeah.
They're in that same district, and the week 6 is the really tough one because everybody's in district, or it seems like it. So you got to get real creative, and he was looking at because the 6As were all looking for us week 6, and
Yep.
it gets kind of tricky there when you do that. So, but. Alignment day is pretty easy. You just kind of see your work unfold in front of you, and both of these guys do a lot of prep work, and you try to anticipate and draw for your district number, not seating, but number, and match up what you anticipate the schedule, and hope that turns out to be what the UIL gives us, and they do a lot of prep work on that, and so alignment day, it's confusing, but you just sit back and watch it unfold. I will say, Mike deals with a different perspective than we do. He deals with 3 football districts. He's got a 4A D2, a 5A D1, and a 5A D2.
Yeah, he's got to wear a lot of different hats. You guys have all spoken about football, and we're going to focus on football a little bit more. But I'm going to guess that you all have had to. I think I said this to Bryan. You probably all had to play Dr. Phil a little bit with the coaches of all the other sports because there's that 10-team district. Every time I talk to one of the coaches in basketball and volleyball, the first thing they say is, 10-team district. It is what it is. We can talk about how it could have. I don't know that it could have been any different, but that's where we are with that. So we're coming up on a break. Like I mentioned, this is the Realignment Special Show. We're not going to talk to any of the 4 teams that we normally talk to. We love them. We'll get them back next Wednesday. We're going to talk just kind of what's going on with realignment for all 8 public schools. Am I right? 8, 4, 2, 2. Yeah, I have to always think about it for a second. We'll be back after this break on the High School Fan Zone on 100.7 The Score. Welcome back in. This is the High School Fan Zone on a Wednesday night. Normally we talk to 4 schools, and on Wednesday night, I was test my memory here. I want to make sure. Wednesday night it is usually Lubbock High, Coronado, Friendship, and Lubbock Cooper. Monday nights we talk to Estacado, Monterey, Memorial, and Liberty. That first group gets the week off. They've had 2 weeks off because we're talking UIL realignment, which got here officially on Monday. But Mike Meeks kind of mentioned this. There weren't any huge shocks in terms of Memorial. We knew Jason Richards, I don't know if I don't want to get him in trouble, but the first time I went out and talked to him in August, one of his first practices, he said, I got to get these guys ready to play 5A football. And I guess I didn't think about it, but it made sense. So it was pretty obvious that that's where Memorial was headed. I think Liberty still surprised me that they didn't grow a little bit. And that may be a different topic for a different day. You knew your 3 schools were going to be 5A, that Estacado was going to be 4A, and don't want to leave them out. Talkington was going to stay 3A. That part wasn't the shock. It was are they going to do a 10-team district? Are they going to try to cross over? You talked about it. Some of the things I saw were a couple of places. I saw that the possibility of taking Friendship and Memorial and sticking them over with Wichita Falls and Abilene, which is weird because then you're driving past schools in your own town to get to a district game. Bryan, had you heard any rumblings about that?
Those were all false. We didn't want none of that. No, I hadn't heard that one, but yeah, obviously
because it's what I said. They wanted. They didn't want to break up any LISD school.
Right. But I hadn't heard that scenario, and I'm glad I didn't hear that scenario because that wouldn't have been good for us.
Which goes back to what I mentioned before. When Mike and I sat down a few years ago, there were these rumblings that the LISD schools might get thrown into with El Paso schools.
Oh yeah, that was a real deal.
Yes, and I remember asking you, Mike, do you? And I'll ask all 3 of you, do you? Because, and I'll mention again, these guys all come. They have different perspectives on things. Bryan's. What do we decide? Mike's the senior AD here?
Uh,
By a few years. He still looks good and
I was
young.
glad to be a part of it.
Brian, you've been in a big Metroplex district, came here. Max, your first time AD after being a very dang good head football coach. Brian, I'm sorry, I don't want to. And Mike, you've probably been in one district the longest.
Well, yeah, we're back 19 years in Lubbock ISD.
You grew up here.
Yeah. I left for 23 years, but
I know that
this is
feeling.
home for sure. And our districts have changed over the years. And I remember when I was in high school in it was 81, 82, and we were in the same district with Amarillo, and when we split and had the district up north and district up here.
Yep.
So that was my first, really recollection of a change to realignment. I think that was the first year that we went 4A to 5A. During that time.
That's to point out that they've got different perspectives, because I want to throw this out. Do they ask you for any input? Does anybody from UIL call and say, hey, we're thinking of this, what do you think?
Nobody called me this year, but they have in the past. When the El Paso thing was a real deal, I had a lot of conversations with the UIL about that.
Yeah.
So we expressed our opinion.
That was stressful.
I guarantee you.
That's maybe you're pretty unflappable, and I remember sitting there and walking out thinking, man, he's worried about this, because that is, you talk about travel. When we're going to talk about the travel thing, that's a whole different animal there.
Yeah.
Max, did anybody call you and?
Does the IRS ever call you about your taxes?
Well, that's a good point.
Want your input on it? No,
Now,
I'm just
for
kidding.
both you guys though, when you're going through when Liberty opened and you're going through you're the one who introduced me to the magic formula thing a few years ago.
Yeah.
That Brian was talking about. Did they talk to you guys about that at all?
That we did. Ray Zepeda called me and just said, hey, just wanted to make sure, is this number accurate, and did we follow the formula and everything? And yeah. So we did get contacted, but I didn't get any input about where we were going. But we just wanted to make sure we submitted all of our numbers correctly.
I've heard like in Mike's case with what he's talking about, that they do call for input, but usually that means something extreme
Like
is
El Paso.
going on. Yeah, and
They've
so
done a good job.
yeah, but when they kind of have their formula and their mindset, you're not going to get a call from them.
I didn't have to bother you so much about the first few years I had the website, because we were just Lubbock Cooper. Didn't have to bother you. With Mike having 4, we talked a few times, and I remember one other thing he said is, there's no, I can't remember exactly what he said. It doesn't make any sense to try to guess what the UIL is going to do, because they're going to do what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a little bit of what happened with this one, but like I said, there was non-surprise element, maybe a little bit of, and a lot of your coaches from all 3 school districts texted me earlier this week, say a prayer for us. So this is the High School Fan Zone on 100.7 The Score. I'm Randy Rosetta. We do the High School Fan Zone twice a week after Thanksgiving normally. We talked to 4 high schools, which we'll get back to next week. We did Monday. We spoke to 4 coaches. We missed last week because of the weather that I'm very happy is gone, and I hope. I'm a Midwestern guy. I don't mind a little cold weather and cold snow, but also get into a routine. You guys aren't your former coaches, so talking to the coaches right now at this time of year, boy, they hate getting out of routine. Basketball coaches they want this, and that messed them up, and I totally understand, because I didn't know what day it was when it finally warmed up. Speaking of basketball coaches, let's go ahead and tear this bandage off, because that's one of the groups. I mentioned the football districts. Now that changes in every other sport, or is that still kind of being hashed out right now?
Yeah, we're working through that too right now.
Yeah.
You asked earlier about what it's like on realignment day, and you have your football mindset, then you have your all sports mindset, and I think every realignment I've ever been through, has it been exactly like you thought? Not always. There's surprises.
I remember talking to you a few years ago, and I'm going to bring that up. What you told me a few years ago.
But for our all sports district in 5A, we got put into a 10-team district.
Yep.
We didn't know for sure that that's what it would be. We were kind of hoping that we would be paired laterally with Amarillo and Wichita Falls and Lubbock and Amarillo. That was my hope. I don't know what y'all were thinking for sure, but that would create a little bit more balance in the schedule, and and now that we're north-south with Amarillo, Lubbock schools, and the 10-team district, that's it's quite a challenge. And then the other 5A district has 5 teams.
Yep. And
So that's a big difference when you're looking to get in the playoffs. You win 4 games, you got a chance to get in the playoffs. In our district, you've got to win to ensure you're in the playoffs. You got to win at least 12. Can you get in with less? I think you can, but with some ties built in there. But the 10 team is tough, and really, we're doing that right now because we're 9 teams.
Yes, the
we're
5A
9
district
teams
right
with
now
an
is no
open
joke.
date, so we have the schedule built for that. So
Before I don't want to I feel bad because Liberty and Estacado here feel like I slammed. They probably feel like the 2 6A teams do with Friendship right now that I've slammed the door on them. 4A, let me go back. 4A Division I football. Actually, that's not those two, but that is, we were talking about that. 4A Division I, Plainview actually dropped down from 5A. They are in a 4-team district. Plainview, Andrews, Greenwood, and San Angelo Lakeview. So there you go. You start the season knowing you're in the playoffs, which it's odd. I'd like to know how those coaches keep guys motivated, but that's for a different night. 4A Division II, which I think is got the potential to be very entertaining. It hasn't been great other than Liberty and Estacado, but maybe that'll start to change. That is Estacado, Liberty, Levelland, Borger, and Perryton. So they've got a few road trips. Brian, you've probably been up to Borger and Perryton a few times when you were coaching at Hereford.
Yeah, those are some fun trips.
Max, I think you retired before you guys had to keep going up there, or did you take Lubbock Cooper up there when you were the football coach?
No, that was Coach Wyndham's days when we were in that district, and we had moved up already when we skipped from 3A to 5A. So good.
That's a wise man when you can avoid those road trips. And I say that you coached in El Paso where you didn't have to leave often, but when you did, those road trips those put hair on your chest.
Well, for sure. And when we were leaving El Paso, we were coming to Lubbock one year and one time, and probably to Midland, Odessa for the other trip. You run out of people to play, non-district, and you got to find games where you can. And it's been common over the years to play somebody that you might meet up with in district. That's kind of the idea to do that. But with travel and as much as we're focused on safety and travel, you go to El Paso. Depending if you're given the hour or taking the hour away, for us, we're getting to El Paso early, but then we're getting home at 5:30 in the morning to do that. So we try to avoid those trips right now.
I told Chip Darden a few years ago I will never complain again about playoff games in Fort Stockton after having to drive to El Paso by myself a few times, because that's not for the mild. We're coming up on a break, but we're going to come back because that 10-team district in 5A, it's a lot of the same teams we just talked about. Friendship, Memorial, Coronado, Lubbock Cooper, Lubbock High, Monterey, Amarillo High, Caprock, Paladero, Tascosa. It's basically the Amarillo ISD schools, the 3 Lubbock ISD schools that are 5A, Lubbock Cooper, and then 2 Friendships. It's more compact, but it's also huge. Come back in. This is the High School Fan Zone on Wednesday night. I'm Randy Rosetta. Reintroduce these guys real quick. Mike Meeks to my left is the athletic director from Lubbock ISD. Four and a half schools since Talkington's in that mix now.
We have 5.
5. There we go.
5 schools.
Talkington, we'll touch on that. Talkington didn't move districts. They're in District 2 3A, which there's been some growing pains. You got to have pains to grow, though.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
Max Kattwinkel, athletic director for Lubbock Cooper ISD, and Bryan Gerlich, athletic director for Friendship ISD. Don't have us up on the screen. I think I've got that right. You guys are to my left, right? I didn't mark my shoes today, so I want to make sure. So we're talking realignment. We're going to jump into a little bit more about the 10-team district. Real quick, 4A, in the 4A district, that doesn't change a whole lot in the other sports. That's going to be Estacado, Liberty. Plainview actually, it does change a little bit. Plainview comes down and we'll be in that district. Big Spring, Snyder, and San Angelo Lakeview. Who did you guys lose? Memorial. Okay, there we go. Memorial bumps up because I know my late father-in-law, Tom Hall, the radio guy from Plainview. I used to tease him all the time about the trips from Plainview to San Angelo because that's not a quick or easy trip to get to. I know some coaches were hoping that they'd slide Lakeview maybe somewhere else, but it didn't happen. But that other than that, that's a very competitive, good district. Liberty and Estacado are kind of dominating that thing in boys basketball, and then girls basketball right now it's Liberty and Memorial, but that will change. 10-team district. So for volleyball, we'll focus more on volleyball, basketball, baseball, softball. Max, with volleyball, what does that mean? How quickly will they have to jump into district?
We looked at that schedule the other day, and I think it's almost like I want to say August 18th is the first.
That's the date I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, they've got 2.5 or 2
Similar
weeks.
to what it is now.
Yeah.
It's basketball that it changes a little bit because as I told you guys, I've had a lot of we're in basketball season, so I've talked to a lot of basketball coaches. You may be talking about district games pre-November or pre-Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right.
I think the schedule we looked at has girls starting before Thanksgiving, and that's still a work in progress and everything, but you've got to allow them to have some weekends for tournaments. And
Right.
Same thing with volleyball, so you're gonna have to start it early.
I'm so used to just watching games and seeing it play. In those sports, they're allowed 2 tournaments, or
You can have 3 tournaments, and it
Okay.
affects the amount of your overall games. You go 3 tournaments, it's 18, I believe. Or soccer's different. They're all different.
they're all
but,
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're allowed 13 or 3 tournaments, and then it affects your total amount of games.
21 games.
Yeah.
Yep.
and I'm going to put in a plug for the tournaments that get put on in Lubbock, Texas, stack up with anybody anywhere. The friendship tournament, the 2 basketball tournaments that get does the LISD still do the tournaments, or are you able to? You've got the baseball tournament and the softball tournament.
We're still doing the softball and baseball tournament. That's coming up very, very quick. We have
Softball's
not.
next week.
Softball's next week, as a matter of fact. And what we have not been able to do is host soccer because
Yes.
the soccer is limited on games. We only get 15 games, and they're trying to go to 3 tournaments, so that impeded our opportunity to fill a district schedule in because our weekend was we're playing district ball games.
And I know, talking to Laura Denning, that I think she's one of the coaches excited about this change because their soccer team, I think your boys and girls soccer team, sat for 10 days.
Yeah, we've struggled to find games.
Yeah.
This 9-team district, they're all playing already, and we just haven't been able to find games very good. And for Coach Denny, and really both of our programs are pretty good. There's some people don't want to play them sometimes for whatever reason, and sometimes travel comes into play, and it's just like it doesn't make sense to drive that far for a game. So they just made a decision that we'll kind of just practice and play our next game when it pops up.
Well, this whole 10-team district, it's been a little bit of a hot spot because it does. First of all, that district's going to be really good. It's already really good in, particularly right now, in girls basketball and volleyball and baseball. It's just a bear. Now it's gotten really good in boys basketball. Talking to Josh Davis today, they go from playing Tascosa, which I think is in the TABC rankings, to Amarillo High, which probably should be. Then now they've got to go play a Lubbock Cooper team that just, with Will Flemings, just gets better and better as the year goes on. So there's no real let up in any of those districts. But I would also think that from a positive viewpoint, that a lot of your schedule is filled up for you. Now, maybe you want to find more non-district games, but you don't have to worry about it. You know that your guys are going to be ready to grind. This reminds, so I covered college football for a long time, and it reminds me of when you're going into the off season, those kids should be motivated. Volleyball kids should be motivated in their off season, knowing I'm going to have to jump in right away. 3rd or 4th match, I'm playing Amarillo High, or I'm playing Tascosa, or I'm playing anybody that this isn't. We're not wading into the shallow end. I would think that the coaches can kind of use that. Is that fair enough to give you some ammo there?
It's going to be very competitive. There's no question. And is there another 10-team district in the state?
No, as far as for what I saw, there's no 10-team district. This is
so
it.
it's going to be very competitive, and with the allotment of games, as we mentioned with the tournaments, that's 10-team district. That's 18 district games. You only have 3 non-district games available on the schedule. Beyond that you can just play home and away on. So very, very competitive. There's not going to be a week off, and you can see it right now in our 9-team district. There's still a lot of basketball to play, and still a lot of playoff spots still to be had.
Well, I can remember sitting here with Brent Palmer and a couple of his girls, maybe a little bit later in February. They went into the last week with the chance to make the playoffs, lost by 1 point. They finished 5th in their district and may have been as good as a bunch of teams in a lot of other districts, and that's going to happen. Now, you two guys, with that Liberty and Friendship in particular, Memorial's still kind of getting used to it, but I know the coaches there, because they're in a smaller district, sometimes they've scuffled a little bit to find people to play to keep them sharp until they get into their district. So I would think, trying to help you guys out here, so one of those coaches come and complain to you, say, well, Randy, he's not very smart, but he said this. So there's no wiggle room. You guys have 5A schools. They better be ready to play right when that season begins.
Well, and I look at it as, if we're in a 10-team district, we all start district at the same time, so nobody's going to have an advantage, but it's going to be an extremely competitive in all sports.
It's good for guys like me. I love watching competitive games, so I don't know if the coaches will stop talking to me or not. We'll see. Coming up on another break. Welcome back in. I'm glad we have one more segment, and I felt like we still left some stuff on the table because we've talked about it in between here. One thing about this, now football Fridays are unique and special. Thursdays when you mix those in. You're going to a game, you're there for 3 hours, you come back. A little bit different travel for most other sports. For example, Bryan, your boys and girls last night had to drive to Odessa on a Tuesday night, play 2 sub-varsity games, 2 varsity games, got back at what time would you guess?
Oh, it's after midnight usually by the time. It kind of depends on how long the games go and getting them something to eat on the way home. But it's not uncommon for it to be midnight, sometimes 1 o'clock maybe. But
which is nothing. Your teams go to Amarillo. Liberty and Estacado go to.
Lakeview.
One of them go to Lakeview last night.
Lakeview.
So, what's going to change with this now, and these guys have all heard it. Every coach I've ever talked to, from my HubCityPreps.com viewpoint, my selfish goal is that 4 years from now that we have just a Lubbock district with 8 schools in it. Because I don't like to travel any more than your folks do. My wife knows when I've had to travel a little bit because I'm cranky. So the travel is going to be better. You're still going to have trips to Amarillo. You're still going to have a trip or 2 to Abilene. But how nice is it to know that everything's a little bit more compact?
Well, that's exciting, and that benefits a lot of areas, But I think for the most of us, being West Texas guys, a 2-hour trip is a 2-hour trip.
Right.
That's nothing. And talking to some guys, about Monday's realignment, with the meetings in the Metroplex, some of the coaches were a little disgruntled because they had a 45-minute road trip, to schedule games. For us one day in Lubbock County, with our schools all being the same district, there's absolutely scheduling's good, travel is good, and an athletic administration where we are and trying to do our part with managing the budget and where our schools have been with deficit budgets, and we're trying to find ways. I know I've had conversations with my CFO. I said, hey, if you'll give us a few years, we got a chance to help you with the transportation costs. Yeah. So there's benefits to that for sure.
Yep.
And that's going to create excitement in our community as well to play these boundary rivalry games amongst our schools.
Because some of the probably the best football games I've seen in 7 years with the website have been Lubbock Cooper and Friendship. Just every year there's something drama. Now in Coronado, when Seth Parr was here, the Coronado Lubbock Cooper games, the Coronado Friendship games. They when those two got it started back up. So yeah, that's to me is the fabulous part. Is you're going to have Monterey playing at Friendship. You're going to have Lubbock Cooper playing. You guys play everybody anyway, but eventually, again, my selfish dream, when you get Liberty playing some of those teams, when you get Memorial jumps in right away, that's going to, not just football though, that's going to help everything. The Estacado, we were talking between breaks, that Estacado Liberty environment for both games, both boys basketball games, is as electric an environment as anything I've covered since I've been back in London.
Yeah, you get a gym packed full of
Nothing like
spirited fans. It's every possession's exciting, and when you have that fan engagement, that's just that helps with what we're after with community-based athletics and trying to create excitement and local excitement, and we've got great teams, and those Liberty and Estacado can certainly put on a show.
Well, I should say that it takes me back not very far to some of the Lubbock Cooper Monterey girls games, back when those two were going at it. With Friendship, just anybody who shows up to play Friendship didn't like Friendship through the years. So the out-of-town teams in particular. You just touched on something, Mike, too, and this is kind of directed towards you, Bryan. I just called them up here. You guys have been Friendship before Memorial Open. Friendship was competitive and everything, really good. Won district championships. Could stand up with anybody out here, and they'd get to the second or third round of the playoffs, and they're playing. I'm looking right here. I'm trying to remember if you guys ever wound up playing Allen in anything in a playoff situation. But I'll use Permian as an example. Permian, in the same district, is 5th biggest high school in the state of Texas with 4,500 students. Friendship until Memorial Open was what, 2,300?
Well, we were actually probably a little bit closer to about 2,700 most of the time.
So,
in
but
there.
still not
yeah,
half.
still no, about half.
And there's something to be said. Not only are you playing teams that have more athletes, you've been a Metroplex coach and AD. It's a little bit different world out there because those coaches and I'm not trying to impugn any coaches. Kids there usually play one sport, and they specialize in. I think I've told a lot of people this. One reason I love covering high school sports out here is because kids don't. They play all kinds of different sports, and to me, that's what's good.
Well, you hit on it. We've had some success at Friendship in a lot of sports, and for the last couple of years, we'd run into South Lake Carroll in that second round, and that's just a unique program over there because year in and year out, they continue to have kids, and everybody just thinks it's because they got more kids than everybody else, but they really don't. And so those games were always challenging for us. And, our basketball teams last year that both played in the regional finals, we lost to a really good Denton Geyer group, and then our girls lost to Boswell, the eventual state champions. But, now we've split our lower level kids now a little bit, and we've got Memorial opening up now. But I'm like Mike. I think I want to go back to just having more local games. It's just going to create more fan excitement. More students will be able to come to games now. It's hard for our kids to hump in a car and go down to Central for a football game. So we'd have very few kids down there, or even Midland and Odessa at times. So having these local games, I think, is really going to increase the student engagement during these games.
You talked about your two teams, and these guys have had teams that proves it can be done. Monterey girls won a state championship. Estacado boys went to the state semifinals and ran into a semi-pro team in Dallas Kimball. Lubbock Cooper broke through in football, got to the state semifinals 3 years with Chip. And your last year, you guys were 12 or 13 and 0.
We finished 13-1.
And your girls basketball team state semifinals twice. Your baseball team. It's not like it can't be done out here in Lubbock, Texas. Realignment is here. So we know now for the next 2 years how things are going to kind of shake out. Mike, Lubbock ISD is you guys have been affected by the new schools opening. As you watch these next 2 years, what do you want to see your 4 programs do to kind of maintain their competitive level? And like I said, we were just talking, won a state championship, Monterey girls. You guys are competitive. What do you want to do what do they need to do to stay there?
Well, number one, we have to be competitive within the district, and whatever that looks like in each program. you've got to know what you're up against, and you've got to be aware of who you're playing, and and get to that point where you're competitive in the district. Because if you're not, it's going to be a tough road, But with where we are, I've always said it. We've got great coaches, and we've got great coaches in Lubbock County with all these schools, and everybody's after the same thing. Everybody wants to win, and that we're going to continue that mindset.
Well, and to follow up on that, you guys have all talked about having in-town games is great. There's something different about when those kids that have played each other all those years get on the court or get on the field. And a couple of your coaches have talked about Memorial and Liberty, how that's brought some spice. Mm-hmm. I think it was C.J. Villegas said that they were sitting down to scout a game against Liberty or Estacado, one of the two, and he said, I started talking about guys by numbers like coaches do. Watch what number 15 does, and one of his kids will say, oh, no, that's Shakur. Or they'll know him by name. That adds something to it as well. You've seen that a little bit for the last couple of years, Max. Your guys are getting used to that. How much does that bring to the table?
Yeah, I'm going to stray the list a little bit, kind of follow up on what Mike said. Just with Lubbock Cooper High School and the transition it went through and what friendships going through. Success looks different every year.
Yep.
And so, Chip's Lubbock Cooper High School in football may not have had the same type of season as last year, but it was a successful year.
Yep.
And so it looks different, and I just wanted to add that to what Mike was basically saying, that same thing, and you can measure success a lot of different ways.
Sort of thinking on the same wavelength, which is scary for you probably more than me, because I was actually going to follow up on what Mike said. I just got distracted by the whole kids playing against each other. Okay. I think we really are coming up on the last segment here, but we're going to take one more break and come back in the Realignment Special on the High School Fan. Welcome back in. This is the Realignment Special on the High School Fan Zone on 100.7 The Score. I'm going to pick up with what Max said there. Success is different, and it's going to be different because now you're going to, it kind of reminds me of, my wife is going to kick me in the shins if she hears me say this. You hear about parity all the time in the NFL. The way it's set up, that teams are going to be competitive. I think Lubbock teams are going to be more competitive with each other. I will give you an example. Tony Wagner loves the arrival of Liberty and Memorial and boys basketball because it gives, with all due respect to the other teams in that district, they haven't been pushed a whole lot before they got to the playoffs. Now, he was as happy as you can be after the other night. He was excited, talking about, we know that Liberty's going to give us everything we want. He's very impressed with C.J. Villegas and what they're doing. That's good for a team like Estacado. It's going to be good for other teams because now we'll go back to the 10-team district. You're going to be in there for 2 months or 3 months. I guess in football it's almost 3 months, where every practice you better be ready to go. Now, Brian, your guys in football have seen this for a while in District 2 6A because that's all. It's like borderline small college type level of talent. Now they've got to do it for 9 or 10 weeks.
Yeah, it's gonna look totally different. And for Friendship, you go back years ago when they were a 4A school and they were really good. They grew really fast,
Yep.
and it took some time for some of this 6A success to happen. And now they've gotten there and everything, and everybody's going, "Oh, y'all are going to 5A now. Friendship's going to do." I said, "Whoa, hold on. This is going to be a really, really competitive district in every sport." And just like you said, I mean, it might not be uncommon in our basketball district. District champ might have 4 or 5
Right.
losses easily. And because I think you're going to see a lot of people beat each other at certain times. And can you get your kids to play up every week is going to be the biggest challenge for our coaches.
Now, except for Jason Sims, I think we could all agree it'd be good if Lubbock teams start beating the Amarillo teams a little bit too.
Somebody's going to have to.
Yep.
I mean, it's just got to. You're going to, in an 8-team district, you're just going to have to compete every week. So.
And I'll mention Jason Sims. I'm half joking because at one of the coaches' luncheons he was talking about how he got along with the Amarillo High guys, and they got in. David Thetford's doing the thing, and David waited for him to finish and said, "Well, I don't like him, just the way that only David Thetford can." But Amarillo's going through some of the things. Amarillo ISD is going through a lot of the same stuff you guys are with some schools opening, but they're also still very competitive. I'm excited to watch the 5A district. I'm excited to watch the 4A district because Estacado and Liberty have established a fun little rivalry right away in just about every sport. Even think back to last spring, it was a miserable, rainy, cold night, and Estacado and Liberty played baseball, and it was just a great game that lasted into the wee hours. But it's just, you bring the best out of each other, and I think that's going to help friendship in Memorial, because now you guys, I was half joking, but you guys had a red target on your chest a lot going to Odessa and Midland because you were the Lubbock school.
Mm-hmm.
Now you get to be just another one of the guys, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we're excited about playing all of them, but I think it's going to be good for our two schools to be playing each other too. I know that it's going to look different and it's going to feel different than anything they've ever experienced, but I think it can also be a very healthy rivalry too because the kids all know each other. I mean, heck, some of them live right across the street from each other just because of boundary lines and things. So it's going to be fun. And you know, the one thing that was important to us as we were hiring that Memorial staff is getting people who are good people with a lot of character, because we do want this to be a rivalry, but we want it to be a healthy rivalry. We don't want a bunch of negative things being said or anything of that nature. And I think we've accomplished that. So we're looking forward to next year.
You're throwing red meat out for me there. If there's anybody in the state that needs advice on how to hire coaches, I would give them these three guys' numbers right here, because the coaching staff that Max put together at Liberty, that you've done, and Mike, you have to churn. There's you've got to change a lot. You bring in the young coaches, first of all, that's cool, but then it makes me feel really old when you're bringing in kids that I covered since I started my website.
You know, we've hired several coaches over the years, and you know, we try to. We're not afraid to hire somebody that has not been a head coach. We try to look for coaches that have value for kids, and because you know we've talked a lot about winning and being competitive and everything, but as these guys have said too, success comes in a lot of different ways as well, and we have that going on.
You know, and you guys, you observe this radio show, and one thing we've done the last 2 years is brought more kids in. The compliments I get from people about talking to kids, about how respectful and just how good those kids are, you guys get a little credit for that. You and your coaches get a little credit for that, because they're getting coached and taught away from the classroom how to do things the right way. So we'll leave it there. We'll be back next week with a normal high school fan zone on 100.7 Score. I'm Randy Rosetta.